911, what's your emergency?
It's Elise! She's still in the water! The orca has her! She's not coming up! Luna isn't letting go! She's pulling her deeper again! There's blood! Oh god! There's so much blood!
Help is on the way. Stay clear of the pool, keep eyes on her, but do not go in.
Sometimes a bond between human and beast feels almost like magic, so deep, so rare it seems unreal. People come from far and wide to watch this connection, mesmerized by the grace of a powerful animal and the courage of the person beside it. They call it entertainment, a breathtaking glimpse into a world few ever see. But beneath the surface of this dazzling show lies a darker truth, one that's easy to ignore until it shatters everything in a heartbeat. What if the trust between them is fragile? What if a single mistake can turn wonder into horror? And this is the story of a woman named Clara Hayes and an orca named Luna, a story of love, danger, and the fragile line between admiration and tragedy. Clara wasn't just any trainer. For more than 10 years, she had devoted her life to the Blue Wave Sanctuary in Santa Cruz, California. From the moment she first dipped her hand into the cool blue pool as an eager intern, she felt an unspoken connection to the orcas. It was more than teaching tricks or giving rewards. It was about listening to a silent language, one spoken through careful movements, knowing looks, and a deep patience few could match. Clara's days were long and demanding, starting before the sun rose and often stretching late into the night, long after the crowds had gone home. She sacrificed holidays, family time, and even her own health, pouring every ounce of herself into caring for the whales. To her colleagues, she seemed almost like one of them, calm, determined, and endlessly passionate about the creatures she loved. She believed with all her heart that she was building a bridge between two worlds, the human and the wild. Her shows were not just performances. They were acts of harmony, demonstrations of trust between two very different beings. Clara was convinced that her work gave these orcas a life far better than the cold ocean they'd been torn from. She saw her role as more than a job. It was a calling, a mission to prove that respect and care could create something beautiful even inside concrete pools. Her strongest bond was with Luna, a black and white giant whose name meant moonlight. But Luna's life was anything but gentle. Luna was a northern resident orca, a fierce and intelligent marine predator, known for its sharp markings and massive strength. Adult females like her could grow to nearly 23 feet long and weigh over 8,000 pounds of force of nature. But Luna's story began in heartbreak. Captured as a young whale off the coast of Iceland, she was violently torn from her family pod, the very group that gave her safety, guidance, and identity. Imagine a human child ripped away from its mother, siblings, and everything familiar. That was Luna's harsh reality. From Iceland, she was shipped across continents, moving between tanks, trainers, and strange pools. Each new place brought new challenges, different caretakers, unfamiliar routines, cramped spaces, and often aggressive orcas she was forced to live alongside. Luna's behavior was a clear record of her pain. Warnings were everywhere if anyone bothered to notice. Other facilities reported mood swings that swung from dull lethargy to sudden aggressive outbursts. Strange, distressed calls echoed from her, unheard or ignored by those around her. Sometimes Luna breached violently near trainers, not for a show but as a warning. She refused commands, pushed trainers during sessions, and even damaged pool equipment. These were not just bad habits. They were signs of a deeply troubled mind struggling under unbearable stress. Yet management brushed them off, hiding behind profit margins and polished appearances. After all, a killer whale acting like a killer would scare away visitors. The subtle cracks in Luna's behavior grew bigger, unnoticed, or dismissed by most. But Clara saw them. She noticed the hesitation before a jump, the dullness in Luna's eyes, the sudden snapping of her massive jaws, just a little too close for comfort. These weren't yet attacks, but flickers of danger warnings from a creature pushed too far. Clara's instincts screamed that something was wrong. She pleaded with senior trainers, vets, and park bosses, showing them reports of Luna's troubled past and begging for change, more playtime, fewer shows, better care. But those cries fell on deaf ears. The show had to go on. Money, publicity, and the promise of a perfect performance outweighed Clara's warnings. The dangerous signs kept growing. One day, during a high-energy routine, Luna misjudged a leap and nearly struck Clara on the platform. Then weeks later, Luna refused to surface for minutes on end during a training session, sending staff into a panic before she finally emerged calm, but leaving an icy fear behind. The quiet concerns that once hid in shadows started surfacing. Conversations whispered between staff members. The cracks in safety were no longer invisible. The warning signs had been building slowly, almost unnoticed, like a quiet storm gathering strength beneath a calm sea. Everyone sensed the tension tightening, a growing dread that no one dared to voice aloud. The day was June 12th, a date marked on calendars and hearts alike. Blue Wave Sanctuary was celebrating its 20th anniversary, a milestone filled with pride and hope. The stadium was packed with nearly 800 excited spectators, their faces glowing with anticipation, cameras clicking, and children squealing with joy. But beneath the celebration, a dangerous undercurrent was stirring, ready to snap. Clara, the ever-professional trainer, hid her unease behind a warm smile and practiced confidence. Wearing her usual black wetsuit, the thick neoprene that fit like a second skin, but offered little shield against the power lurking beneath, she prepared for the show. The music swelled, the water sparkled under the bright sun, and the orcas performed with their familiar grace. At first, Luna seemed to cooperate, perfectly executing jumps and flips with the practiced precision that had made her a crowd favorite. Clara was in her element, guiding Luna with subtle hand signals, her voice a gentle murmur cutting through the noise of applause. But then at precisely 2:47 in the afternoon, during the intimate segment where Clara slipped into the pool for a close interaction, something shifted. The routine was designed to showcase the unique bond between human and orca, a gentle nudge, a controlled glide across the water. But as Clara stepped in, Luna's movements grew uneven, jerky. Her eyes, usually bright and expressive, suddenly looked distant, unfocused. Then with a speed that shocked everyone, Luna slammed into Clara instead of the expected gentle touch. The impact sent a sickening thud through the pool, and a collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Clara struggled for breath, dazed and disoriented. But Luna wasn't done. Instead of backing away, she circled back and grabbed Clara's leg, dragging her into the deep end. The sparkling blue water churned into violent froth as Clara's screams echoed, cut short by the crushing force beneath. Panic exploded in the stands as the horror unfolded. Luna repeatedly dragged Clara under, smashing the water with powerful tail strikes that thundered through the stadium. Each time Clara fought up for air, Luna pulled her back down, holding her underwater for terrifying moments. Witnesses later described the scene as a terrifying dance, a brutal ballet of desperation and raw power. The bright orange of Clara's wetsuit flashed like a beacon amidst the swirling chaos. Trainers on deck were frozen in shock before reacting with whistles and distress calls, but Luna seemed lost to a primal fury. Attempts to distract her with food failed. The other orcas, usually lively, stood silent and still watching the nightmare unfold. Minutes later, Clara surfaced one last time. Her body was limp, pale, marked by a deep bloody cut. Luna continued to toy with her, nudging and dragging, as if she were a broken toy. The crowd's screams turned to sobs and anguished cries. Security scrambled to deploy safety nets and close emergency gates, desperate to separate Luna from Clara. After what felt like forever, but was only 15 brutal minutes, staff forced Luna into an adjacent pool using nets and loud sonic deterrents. Clara's lifeless form floated to the surface, the water stained a dark crimson. A crushing silence fell over the stadium, shattered only by the wail of approaching sirens. The first 911 call came at 2:50, a frantic message from a terrified park employee trainer down. Orca attack, send help now. Within moments, flashing police lights and ambulance sirens filled the air as emergency teams from Santa Cruz rushed in. Officers pushed back shocked, grieving spectators, many clutching their children, tears streaming down their faces. Paramedics moved swiftly, their medical bags rattling as they worked to save Clara. But the scene told a brutal story. Despite their efforts, Clara showed no signs of life, her body battered by lacerations, blunt force trauma, and internal injuries. The autopsy later confirmed the devastating reality, drowning caused by the overwhelming force of the orca's attack. News spread like wildfires, shattering the sanctuary's carefully crafted image. Media outlets descended on Santa Cruz, covering every detail, interviewing stunned employees and heartbroken witnesses. Animal rights activists seized the moment, reigniting fierce debates over the ethics of keeping such powerful creatures in captivity. For many, Clara's death was a tragic reminder that beneath the spectacle of show and trust lies a dangerous truth, one that cost a life and changed the conversation forever. Headlines exploded across newspapers and screens everywhere. Trainer killed by beloved Orca, Blue Wave Sanctuary's dark secret, the high price of entertainment. The tragic event shattered the carefully crafted image of the sanctuary, exposing a grim reality hidden behind its glossy facade. Soon after, whistleblowers stepped forward, revealing a disturbing pattern of neglect and profit-driven decisions that put both animals and trainers in harm's way. Internal documents, once buried deep in forgotten files, surfaced, exposing a history of warnings that had been ignored or dismissed in favor of keeping the show running. Among the leaked reports was a damning document from 2017 authored by a concerned veterinarian. It detailed Luna's escalating stress, unpredictable behavior, and growing aggression, red flags that called for immediate changes in how trainers interacted with her. But instead of acting on these warnings, management chose optimism and public relations spin, burying the truth to protect the sanctuary's reputation. The fallout was swift and severe. Clara's grieving family, through their lawyers, announced plans to sue Blue Wave Sanctuary for wrongful death, accusing them of negligence and failure to ensure a safe working environment. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, launched a thorough investigation, scrutinizing every corner of the sanctuary's safety protocols, training procedures, and animal care practices. Though no criminal charges were ultimately brought against the park's management, public outrage reached a fever pitch. Protests erupted outside the sanctuary gates as animal rights groups used Clara's death to reignite the fierce debate over marine mammal captivity. Petitions calling for an end to orca captivity collected millions of signatures. Celebrities lent their voices to the cause, condemning the industry that forced magnificent wild creatures into confined spaces for human amusement. Visitor numbers at Blue Wave Sanctuary and similar parks plummeted almost overnight. The once muted calls for legislative reform became a powerful roar demanding change. Luna the orca, at the center of the tragedy, became a symbol of that conflict, seen by some as a dangerous killer, by others as a tragic victim of captivity's cruelty. Removed from shows, she was isolated, swimming alone in a silent pool, a living reminder of the consequences of confining an animal born to roam vast oceans. Clara's story wasn't just a tragedy between a trainer and an orca. It became a haunting parable about ignored warnings, broken promises, and a system that chose profit over people and animals alike. Clara herself became a symbol not of failure, but of a deeply flawed system built on illusion rather than truth. Luna's empty pool echoed with a chilling question that still reverberates today. How many more lives will be lost before we stop calling this cruel captivity entertainment? The tragedy demanded a reckoning, a call to end the dangerous game of forcing wild animals into unnatural lives, and to finally respect the fierce, untamable spirit that can never be truly broken.